So now we want to talk about, does finance really need space data?
So let's dive into climate change. Industries are under immense pressure to go green, aren't they? Meanwhile, finance has stepped up as the unexpected hero, leading the charge towards sustainable growth.
Yeah, I mean, in a way, money fixes everything, right? I don't know. But we are making progress when it comes to ESG, right? But the thing is, the data we're talking about the finance sector, uses actually comes from companies just telling them stuff. So it's kind of like grading your own homework. That's not right.
Exactly. Satellites could hold companies accountable, observing from above with no bias and no excuses. But there's a catch. Finance and space don't seem to speak the same language yet.
Sounds like you and I.
What did you say?
Nothing. I said I like you.
This isn't the time for romance, Chris.
All right, Elsa, she gets it. That's good. But the big question is, does finance really need space data? Now, maybe we're just daydreaming about satellites fixing everything, but luckily we have someone to set us straight. So why don't we welcome with a big round of applause our next speaker. Here's Geoffrey Macassoli. Welcome, Geoffrey. So, welcome to the stage.
Thank you.
Great to have you. Please, take a seat. There we go. First off, sitting comfortably?
Very.
Did I kind of pronounce your name correctly?
Perfectly.
Really? Okay, I'll take that. So, Geoffrey, first of all, great to have you with us. You work for PwC, specialized in ESG and also sustainability. Maybe you could start by telling us what transition the finance sector has actually gone through in the last couple of years, and especially when it comes to sustainability, and what is yet to come.
Thank you, Chris, and good morning, everyone. First, allow me to say that I've been speaking to many industry conferences, and I never thought I would be speaking once in a space industry conferences. So it's an honor for me to be with you today. If we think of the main changes that happen in the what we call sustainable finance landscape over the past few years, in 2018, the EU launched its Action Plan on Sustainable Finance, with the objective to reorient capital flows toward more sustainable projects. So if you think of that Action Plan on Sustainable Finance, which form an integral part of what we call the EU Green Deal, there are three main objectives. The first one, as I said, is to reorient capital and private capitals to more sustainable projects. The second one is to make sustainability mainstream for risk management. And the third one is to foster more transparency, more disclosure, and more reporting to investors. So as always, the EU translated that into a set of regulation and directive, which basically force or impose the financial sector to consider sustainability through the whole value chain and to report to external stakeholders.
So ESG are going to play an important role, obviously. Maybe you can tell us how that works currently, like who provides the data and so forth.
Yeah, so that's really the current situation is that, as you rightfully mentioned in the introduction, companies are self-reporting their ESG data. Sometimes this is entirely done internally. Sometimes they use external experts to prepare this reporting. And then you have what we call ESG data providers. And ESG data providers are providers that have been working for the financial sector for decades. Typically, you have the MSCI, the Bloomberg, the Refinitiv, and you have to think that those guys, they all survived, the subprime crisis, where everyone recognized that their ratings were basically crap. They acquired all of the sustainability boutique that started and launched ESG data, probably 5 to 10 years ago. And now they are sitting on a pile of gold that they don't want to share with anyone. They speak the same language that all of the financial, players. And what they do is very simple. They aggregate the ESG data that are self-reported by the companies. They put everything into a big database. and the financial players are paying a license to get access to this data.
But that doesn't really sound...
No. And I think everyone recognized that there are some limitations.
Yeah.
And these limitations are, I would say, not minor. We are talking about major limitations. Of course, the first one that everyone identify is objectivity. What is the credit that you will grant to an information that is self-reported by a company or anyone? The second is also coverage. If you think of ESG data, we are obviously here in Luxembourg, part of the EU, but the financial sector is not only looking about data from EU companies. They are investing, they are financing, they are providing insurance to companies that are located worldwide. Now think of a company that is located in the Popular Republic of China. Do you think that the ESG data you will obtain from this company is reliable? And now think of, different type of asset classes. We are talking a lot about, for instance, green bonds. A green bond is a bond that is funding by a bank for a sustainable project that is environmentally related. But how can you verify that the money that you lend to a company is actually being used for an environmental project? So if you think of the challenges, I started with objectivity, which is the most obvious one. Then I went into coverage. And if I think of a third one, that will be frequency. Currently, ESG data is reported once a year, and with a time lag, because it's part of the annual report. So it's reported in February, March to April. So when you are reading the data, it's already dated, a couple of months, from that. So it makes it very difficult to take, decisions which are based on real-time information or to track monitoring evolution on a more frequent basis.
Did you see the last talk with Andrea?
Yes.
Rupa? Now, I think she had a great example of how space tech basically can offer better data across industries, more reliably, independent. Why hasn't the finance sector adapted this tech as quickly, or why is it lacking behind?
I think it's because the financial sector is very different from what we call the real economy. I don't like that term because that gives the impression that myself working in the financial sector, we don't work in the real economy. But as a matter of fact, if you are a mining industry and you are just in one of the highest emitting sector, so if you want to get financing, if you want your stock price to remain stable or increase, you need to address some of the challenges related to ESG. You need to demonstrate that you are taking the matter seriously, and by trying to use satellite data or rely on space observation to provide more accurate reporting to your investors and external stakeholders, you are really serving your long-term purpose. If you think of the financial sector, it's completely different. The financial sector is, again, an aggregator. A bank is providing financing to thousands of companies. An asset manager is investing into 100 or even thousands of companies. When they are reporting to their own clients, they are reporting at an aggregated level. So really the fact that that mining company, because now they are using satellite data, they get data that is more accurate, does not change too much, the aggregate KPI. So if you think of the bank or the asset manager, they're happy that this mining company is taking the route of trying to report and provide more accurate data, and they will be able to rely on this more accurate data. But why would they pay, and take a provider that is more expensive, that do not speak their language, and that do not provide the full set of ESG data? Because, again, when I'm trying to think of the challenges that the space industry is facing when trying to tap into that market, I think of three main challenges. The first one is relatively obvious, is how to translate data, an information, into something that is meaningful for the financial industry. I've been discussing, and I mentioned that to Chris, before entering the discussion, is I've been working with a large satellite firm for almost 2 years. And they are really keen to provide data to the financial sector. And they show us a lot of the information that they will be able to provide to the financial sector. For instance, you can see land deforestation, you can see pollution to water, you look at the river before and after a factory, and you see if there is any kind of pollution. It's very interesting. But that's currently not KPI a bank is reporting on.
Okay, that's one.
The main KPI is greenhouse gas emission. You want to solve the issue of the financial sector, provide real-time, more accurate greenhouse gas emission at the level of a company, go the next level, go and identify the greenhouse gas emission of the whole supply chain, the so-called, what we call scope 3. That's the main challenge. That's number one. Number two is the fact that satellites will provide or may provide certain data. But we said earlier in the introduction, banks, insurance companies, asset managers are reporting on ESG. It's a whole set of data. E is only, probably 20% of the data that they are reporting on. Yes, that's the most important data. But that's not alone. What banks like is a one-stop shop. You work with a provider, say MSCI. MSCI will provide you all of the ESG data you need to report on, all of the ESG data you need to monitor when you are providing a financing to a company, when you are providing an insurance to a company or an individual. And that's why we see that certain players are considering entering into partnership. Because alone, you are just providing a very, very minimal set of data. And with the volume of reporting that the financial sector is subject to, they are trying to minimize the source of data so that it's easier for them to streamline the reporting process.
So and the third?
And the third one, sorry, I forgot about the third. The third is a cost. It's something that is true for any industry. If you have a great product, but your product is too expensive, you will not sell it. So you need to make sure that you have a product that is competitive to the other providers. The financial sector can live with estimated data. I know that what you can bring is actual, scientific, accurate data. But we are fine sometimes to live with some level of approximation. The only issue we have at the moment is that this level of approximation is too high.
Okay. Looking at the screen, we have a question coming in here from our remote audience, obviously. I'd like to prioritize this. How did PwC business model change to be more sustainable?
It changed in multiple ways. First, when I started at PwC 17 years ago, we didn't have any sustainability practice. So there was no one that was providing advice or that was providing audit on sustainability reporting. Now, if you go and read the PwC report, you will see that one of our biggest bets is sustainability. We even believe that sustainability audit will replace financial audit in a couple of years. Second is we look at what's the impact that PwC has on society as a whole. We engage with stakeholders to understand what can we change, what are the topics that you believe that we could do better, or on which we have a material and negative impact. And based on this stakeholder engagement, we change the way we operate and the way we do business. Let me take a very concrete example that may seem very basic. Now we fly economy. If you would have asked us the question 2 years ago, everyone was flying business, even for short flights. Now you fly economy, even if you fly to Los Angeles or if you fly to Singapore. Same. We also look at the number of physical meetings we do. We see the value of physical meetings, But as much as possible, we prioritize virtual meetings unless it is absolutely necessary to travel.
Do you also think it's necessary that more regulations are put in place to basically kind of like force the finance sector to use space data? Would that be a way?
I can be open because I think there is no one from the financial sector, in the room, so I can say what I think, which I never do in general. If there is no regulation, the finance sector does not move. That's the reality. And even with regulation, they are not moving at a pace which is sufficient to tackle the current challenges that the world is facing. So not only you need regulation, but you need supervision. And that's one of the reasons why the EU decided to impose what is called the Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive, which will impose not only further reporting from companies that operate in the EU, but also verification of this information by a sustainability auditor. So it's great for me, of course, but it's also great for you. Because as soon as this information will start to be verified by a third party, there will be a number of companies that will get what we call, qualified or modified opinion, where basically the auditor said that the information is either incorrect or they did not obtain sufficient information to be able to say that it is correct. And that's only when the financial sector will start to see that type of opinions and will see the impact it has on its ability, again, to attract investors, that they will start to change and they will say, okay, now we need to invest. We need to make a step to get data that is more accurate, that can be verified, and by doing so, we will reduce the risk of greenwashing allegation, basically the risk of being either fined by your regulator or being in the press.
Thank you very much for sharing this so openly and honestly. What happens in this room stays in this room, right? That's but we have one more question here from our chat. What is the willingness of audit sectors to adopt new, innovative, space-driven solutions?
The willingness is very high, and I will tell you why. Because we do not have sufficient resources to be able to go on site and verify, the greenhouse gas emission of all of the factories of our clients. So we need to use independent source that we can rely on in order to be able to attest the quality of the report. As a matter of fact, I said earlier that we are working with large satellite firms, and the reason why we are working with them is twofold. First, we are working as a partner to help them understand the demand for the financial sector so they can enter into that market. And the second is because we want to be the first audit firm that will be able to benefit from the value and the reliability of an information that is provided by satellite data.
Geoffrey, looking at the time, we're going to have to cap it here. This concludes our little talk, but I hope this invites you all once again to get in contact with Geoffrey afterwards. You're going to stick around?
Of course.
All right. So let's give him a big round of applause for these couple of minutes here on stage. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
Makasoli. Continued success with that topic and why the finance sector needs space.